The strange proposal, the night sky of Xeloc City glowed with silver lights. The human traveler, Daniel, walked slowly through the alien bazaar. He had been to many planets before, but this place felt strange. The air smelled of spices and burning oil, and every corner was filled with sounds of bargaining, laughter, and alien voices. Tall buildings covered in glowing patterns stood like giants around him, and strange creatures with different skins, scales, and colors moved across the streets. Daniel had come to Xeloc only for one reason: trade. He wanted to sell some small Earth-made devices to earn enough credits for his next journey. But fate had other plans for him. As he passed a narrow alley, he felt someone's eyes watching him. He stopped, turned his head, and saw her. She stood in the shadows, half hidden under a cloak. Her eyes glowed like twin stars, bright and full of mystery. Her skin was pale blue, smooth as polished stone, and her silver hair fell down like a river. She looked young, but carried an aura of sadness. Daniel froze for a moment, unsure why she caught his attention so strongly. Slowly, she stepped out of the shadows. Her voice was soft but clear, and her words struck him like thunder. "Rent me for one night, human." Daniel blinked in shock. He thought he had misheard her. The market was noisy, voices mixing with the hum of neon lights. But she repeated it again, looking straight into his eyes. "Rent me for one night." Daniel's heart skipped. He had met many kinds of aliens in his travels, but never had he been given such a strange proposal. He frowned, his instincts telling him to walk away. Yet something in her eyes made him stay. They were not the eyes of someone desperate for money or shallow entertainment. They were the eyes of someone asking for rescue. "Why would you say that?" Daniel asked, his voice low. The alien woman lowered her cloak, revealing more of her delicate form. There were faint marks on her wrists, scars that looked like old shackles. She took a step closer, her expression firm yet trembling with hidden fear. "Because I need you," she whispered. Daniel's chest tightened. He had seen enough in his life to recognize the tone of someone trapped, someone fighting to survive. Still, he stayed cautious. "I'm not the kind of man who buys people," Daniel replied carefully. Her lips curved into a faint, bitter smile. "This is not about buying. This is about freedom. For one night, be mine, or let me be yours. After that, I may never get another chance." Before Daniel could respond, two tall alien guards walked down the street, their eyes scanning the crowd. The woman quickly grabbed Daniel's arm and pulled him into the alley. Her hands were cold but strong. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "If they see me, they will take me back." "I cannot go back." Daniel's mind raced. Who were they? Why were they after her? What was her story? He looked into her pleading eyes and realized she was not joking. The guards stopped near the alley entrance, their voices deep and harsh as they spoke in their native tongue. Daniel could not understand, but he felt the tension rise. The woman pressed closer to him, hiding her face against his chest like a terrified child. For a long moment, Daniel stood frozen, his heart pounding in his ears. Finally, the guards moved on, leaving the alley in silence. The woman slowly lifted her head, her eyes wet but shining. "Do you understand now?" she asked softly. Daniel nodded, still confused but unable to walk away. There was something powerful in her presence. He wanted to know who she was, why she needed him, and what danger followed her. "Tell me your name first," Daniel said firmly. Her lips trembled before she answered. "My name is Liara." Liara. The name rolled through his mind like a secret melody. Daniel sighed. He had promised himself never to get involved in other people's battles again. But this was different. He could not ignore her. "All right, Liara," he said slowly. "I'll hear you out. But if you want my help, you must tell me everything. Why are they after you?" Liara's eyes darkened. She looked around to be sure no one was listening. Then in a whisper full of fear and courage, she said words that changed everything. "Because I escaped from them. They want me as property, as a vessel for their bloodline. But I want to live free, and tonight I chose you." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He finally understood this was no ordinary proposal. This was a cry for freedom, a call for protection. As the night wind rustled through the bazaar, Daniel knew his life had just taken a sharp turn. The strange proposal was not about pleasure. It was about survival, about rebellion, about something far greater than he imagined. And deep inside, he felt a storm waiting to unfold. The hidden truth. Daniel followed Liara deeper into the narrow alleys of Xeloc City. The market sounds faded behind them, replaced by the quiet drip of water from broken pipes and the hiss of steam rising from hidden vents. The air smelled of rust and damp stone. Liara walked quickly, her cloak drawn tight, her eyes darting left and right like a hunted bird. Daniel's mind was heavy with questions. Who was she really? What had she meant by rent me for one night? And why had the guards looked so eager to find her? Finally, Liara stopped near an old building, its walls cracked and covered in glowing moss. She pulled Daniel inside. The place was empty, with only broken furniture and dust. A single light flickered above them. She turned to face him, her silver hair falling around her shoulders. For the first time, Daniel saw her fully without fear of the guards. She was beautiful in a haunting way, but her beauty was marked with pain. You want the truth, she whispered, but it is not easy to hear. Daniel crossed his arms, his tone calm but firm. Start from the beginning. Liara sat on a broken bench and lowered her eyes. Her fingers traced the scars on her wrists. I was born to the clan of Serox, she began. They are powerful, rich, and cruel. To them, women are not daughters or sisters, they are tools. Every girl is raised to serve the clan's hunger for power. We are given to men as trophies, sold for alliances, or forced to carry children. I was chosen for breeding when I was 16 cycles old. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had heard of dark customs across the galaxy, but hearing it directly from her lips made his blood boil. Liara continued, her voice trembling. I lived behind walls, never free, never allowed to choose. They told me my life's purpose was to give them heirs. I obeyed for years because I knew no other life. But deep inside I dreamed of escape. She paused, her eyes meeting his. 2 months ago I ran away during a trade gathering. Since then, I have been hiding in the shadows, hunted like an animal. If they catch me, they will chain me again. Or worse, Daniel felt his chest tighten. He finally understood the fear in her voice back at the bazaar. But why me? Daniel asked slowly. Why ask a stranger, a human traveler? Liara looked at him with sharp eyes that glimmered in the weak light. Because you are not part of them. You are not tied to their rules, their corruption. I watched you trade in the market earlier today. You refused to cheat even when you could have. You were fair, honest. That is rare here. When I saw you, I knew I must take a chance. If only for one night I wanted to belong to someone who sees me as a person, not property. Her words struck Daniel deep. He had always lived by a simple code. Never exploit, never betray. Yet he never thought his honesty would make him someone's last hope. Liara's lips trembled as she continued. And there is more. My people believe humans cannot bond with us, that no child can come from such union. But I feel differently. I feel there is something inside me, something they fear. If I am with you even for one night, it may break their chains forever. They will not own me or my future child. Daniel's eyes widened. The weight of her proposal grew heavier with every word. This was not about passion or desire. It was about rebellion, about rewriting destiny. The room fell silent, the only sound the flickering light above them. Daniel stepped closer, his face serious. You are asking me to risk my life. If your clan finds us, they will not stop until I am dead. Are you sure this is the path you want? Liara lifted her chin, her courage shining through her fear. I am sure. I would rather die free for one night than live forever as their slave. Daniel admired her strength. She was fragile and wounded, yet her spirit burned like fire. He knew he could walk away now, pretend this never happened. But deep in his heart, he also knew he would never forgive himself if he left her alone. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. All right, Liara, I'll stay with you. But understand this, I am not renting you. I am standing beside you. Her eyes softened, and for the first time a faint smile touched her lips. Then perhaps I chose well. Before Daniel could respond, a sudden noise echoed outside. Heavy footsteps. The sound of metal boots on stone. Liara's smile vanished, her face pale with fear. They found me, she whispered. Daniel pulled her close, his instincts sharp. He peeked through a crack in the wall and saw 3 Serox hunters approaching the building. Their armor gleamed and their weapons glowed with red energy. They looked ruthless, ready to kill. Daniel's heart raced. The truth had been revealed, but with it came danger. There was no turning back now. Liara clutched his arm. What will you do? Daniel looked at her, his jaw set. The only thing I can do. Protect you. The footsteps grew louder. The hunters were almost inside. Daniel felt the storm rising, and in that moment he realized this was only the beginning. The night of fear The air inside the ruined building grew tense as the footsteps of the Serox hunters echoed closer. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, his hand instinctively going to the small blaster at his belt. It wasn't much, a short-range weapon meant for self-defense, but it was all he had. Liara clung to his arm, her breath sharp and uneven. Her glowing eyes darted toward the door, then back to Daniel, silently asking if there was a way out. "Stay behind me," Daniel whispered. His voice was calm, but inside his pulse raced like a storm. The hunters' voices rumbled outside, speaking in their rough alien tongue. Daniel couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear, commanding, searching, and merciless. The heavy sound of a weapon being charged made his skin crawl. The door creaked open. A tall hunter stepped in, his body covered in black armor lined with red veins of energy. His helmet eyes glowed like embers. Behind him, 2 more followed, weapons ready. They scanned the room with cold precision. Daniel raised his blaster, but before he could act, Liara grabbed his wrist. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You can't kill them, not yet. If you fire, the others will come." Daniel froze. Her words made sense. These 3 were just scouts. If more followed, they'd be trapped like animals. The lead hunter moved closer, his helmet sweeping across the room. He paused near the broken bench where Liara had sat moments earlier. He bent down, his gloved fingers brushing the dust. He growled a few sharp words, signaling the others. Liara's grip on Daniel's arm tightened painfully. She leaned close to his ear. "There's a tunnel behind the far wall. I used it before. If we reach it, we can escape into the lower city." Daniel nodded quickly, scanning the room. The tunnel entrance wasn't visible, but Liara pointed toward a pile of crates and broken stone near the corner. The hunters spread out, their boots striking the floor in heavy thuds. One of them raised his weapon toward the far side of the room. Daniel acted fast. He grabbed Liara's hand and pulled her low, crawling behind the broken furniture. The hunters' helmets clicked, their scanners humming with energy. "Faster," Daniel whispered, urging Liara forward. They reached the crates. Liara pushed aside a piece of wood, revealing a narrow opening just large enough for a person to slip through. A faint breeze carried the smell of damp air from below. "Go," Daniel ordered. Liara hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll follow. Move." She squeezed through the hole, vanishing into the darkness below. Daniel crouched behind the crates, waiting until the nearest hunter's back was turned. Then he slid into the tunnel, pulling the wood back into place just before the glow of a scanner passed overhead. The tunnel was tight and wet, the walls dripping with moisture. Daniel crawled quickly, his shoulders brushing against rough stone. Liara moved ahead, guiding him through the darkness. Their breaths echoed in the silence, broken only by the muffled sounds of the hunters searching above. Finally, the tunnel widened, opening into a large underground chamber filled with abandoned machinery. Rusted pipes stretched across the ceiling, dripping water into shallow pools. Dim blue lights flickered on the walls, powered by dying circuits. Liara leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "We're safe. For now." Daniel scanned the room, still holding his blaster. "Safe doesn't last forever. They know you escaped down here. They'll follow." Liara's eyes shone with both fear and determination. "You see now why I asked you? Alone, I would have been caught by now. But with you..." She paused, her voice softening. "I feel like maybe I can fight." Daniel studied her face. She wasn't just running anymore, she was daring to hope. That hope was dangerous, but it also sparked something in him. Before he could answer, a loud metallic clang echoed through the chamber. Daniel spun around, his blaster raised. Shadows shifted near the far pipes. A second later, red beams of scanning light swept across the chamber. "They've found us," Daniel muttered. Liara stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. Her voice trembled but held steel beneath the fear. "Then we fight together." The first hunter dropped into the chamber, landing with a heavy thud. His weapon gleamed as it charged with energy. Behind him, more shadows appeared, reinforcements. Daniel fired first, his blaster flashing blue. The shot hit the hunter's shoulder, forcing him back. But the armor absorbed most of the impact. The alien growled and returned fire, a red beam slicing past Daniel's head and burning into the wall. Liara screamed but didn't run. Instead, she grabbed a broken pipe from the floor and swung it at the nearest hunter as he leapt toward her. The metal cracked against his helmet, stunning him long enough for Daniel to land another shot, this time piercing the joint in the armor. The hunter collapsed with a roar, The fight was chaos. Blaster fire lit up the chamber, shadows twisted across the walls, and the sound of metal striking metal echoed in the darkness. Daniel's heart pounded as he ducked behind a machine, firing quick shots. Liara fought fiercely beside him, her desperation turning into raw strength. Finally, the last hunter fell, smoke rising from his armor. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by Daniel's ragged breathing and the drip of water from the pipes. Liara dropped the pipe, her hands trembling. She looked at Daniel, her chest rising and falling. "You risked your life for me, why?" Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, his eyes steady on hers. "Because no one should have to live like a slave, not you. Not anyone." Liara's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, tears glistened in her eyes. For a moment, in that dark chamber, the fear lifted. A bond stronger than survival began to form, but Daniel knew the night was far from over. More hunters would come. The real storm had only just begun. The unexpected news. The underground chamber still echoed with the sounds of battle. The smell of burnt armor and smoke filled the air. Daniel sat against a broken machine, his blaster resting on his knee. His chest rose and fell as he tried to steady his breathing. Liara knelt beside him, her silver hair damp with sweat, her blue skin streaked with dust. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with unspoken fear. Then Liara placed her hand gently on his arm. "You should not have stayed," she whispered. "You risked everything for me." Daniel shook his head. "I had no choice. If I walked away, I'd never forgive myself." Liara's eyes softened, but there was something deeper hidden inside them, something she was struggling to say. Daniel noticed the way she touched her stomach almost unconsciously, as if guarding a fragile secret. "What are you hiding from me?" he asked quietly. Liara hesitated. Her fingers trembled as they pressed against her abdomen. She closed her eyes, her voice low and uncertain. "I think," she paused, swallowing hard. "I think I carry life inside me." Daniel blinked, stunned. "You mean, you're pregnant?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, and if it is true, it is not from the clan. It is from before I escaped. One moment of weakness, one night forced upon me. But the healers told me something long ago, that my body reacts differently than others of my kind. They said, if another species touched my bloodline, something impossible might happen. A child could survive." Her voice broke and she covered her face with her hands. "I don't know if it is true, Daniel. But if it is, then the Serox will never stop hunting me. They fear what my child could become. That is why they chase me like predators." Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of the scars on her wrists, the terror in her eyes when the hunters appeared, and now, this. She wasn't only running for herself. She was running for the life growing inside her. "Liara." Daniel's voice was firm but gentle. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Because I didn't trust you fully," she admitted, her eyes glistening with tears. "Humans. I've heard of them, but I never knew if one would understand. Yet when you saved me, when you fought beside me, I felt something. Something I haven't felt in years. Hope." Her words struck him like lightning. Daniel had been a wanderer for so long, living from one planet to another, never belonging anywhere. But now, sitting with this fragile yet strong woman, he felt a pull stronger than his own fear. He leaned closer, his voice steady. "Then we protect this life, no matter what it takes." Liara's tears fell freely now, but she smiled through them. "You don't understand, Daniel. If the Serox discover this child, they will not only kill me, they will kill you too. They cannot allow a bond between human and Serox bloodline. It breaks their pride, their power." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then let them come. I've fought worse odds before." Liara shook her head, fear flickering in her eyes. "You don't know them. They are endless. Every corner of this city holds their spies. We cannot fight them forever." Daniel's gaze hardened. "Then we don't fight them forever. We find a way out. Off this planet." Liara looked stunned. "Escape Xelox? It is impossible. They control the ports, the skies, even the shadows. No ship leaves without their eyes watching." "Nothing is impossible," Daniel said firmly. "I've slipped past worse systems. If I can reach my ship, we might have a chance." Her lips parted, but no words came. She studied his face as though weighing the truth in his eyes. Finally, she nodded, her voice trembling but filled with resolve. "Then I will trust you. But before we leave, I must tell you something else." Daniel frowned. "What is it?" Liara's voice grew quiet, almost a whisper. "I wasn't just anyone in the Serox clan. I was their chosen vessel, The child they wanted me to bear was meant to carry the blood of their future leader. That is why they cannot let me go. If they find out I carry something else instead, they will hunt us across the stars. The revelation hit Daniel like a hammer. She wasn't just running from slavery, she was running from destiny itself. Before he could respond, a sudden crash echoed through the chamber. Metal grated against stone. Liara gasped, grabbing his arm. "They're here again." Daniel jumped to his feet, blaster ready. But this time it wasn't the Xerox hunters who appeared. From the tunnel, 3 shadowy figures emerged, their faces hidden under masks. They carried weapons, but not Xerox weapons. "Who are they?" Daniel muttered. Liara's eyes widened. "Not hunters. Rebels." The masked figures stepped closer. The leader pulled off his mask, revealing a scarred alien face, weary but determined. "We've been watching you," the rebel said in a gravelly voice. "And we know who she is. If you want to survive, human, you will come with us." Daniel tightened his grip on his blaster, unsure if this was salvation or another trap. Liara looked at him with fear and hope tangled together. The night had already given them fear. But now it promised something else, an uncertain path and maybe a chance at freedom. The chase begins. The chamber was heavy with silence after the scarred alien spoke. Daniel kept his blaster raised, his finger brushing the trigger. Liara stood close beside him, her cloak wrapped tight as if to hide from both friends and enemies. The rebel leader's voice echoed again. "If you want to survive, come with us. The Xerox hunters will not stop until they burn this whole district to the ground." Daniel narrowed his eyes. He didn't trust strangers easily. "And why should I believe you're different? For all I know, you'll hand her back to them for a price." The scarred alien smirked. "If we wanted that, she'd already be in chains. But we hate the Xerox more than you can imagine. They killed our families, stole our homes. Helping her hurts them. That is reason enough." Liara's voice trembled but carried strength. "Daniel, I know of them, whispers, the resistance. They hide in the shadows of Xelox. If anyone can move us through the city unseen, it is them." Daniel looked into her glowing eyes, then back at the rebels. He lowered his blaster slightly, though his grip stayed firm. "Fine, lead the way. But if this is a trick, I'll make sure you regret it." The rebel leader nodded without fear. "Follow." They left the chamber through another tunnel, winding down into the underbelly of Xelox. The path was narrow, dripping with moisture, the walls marked with old symbols of forgotten guilds. Strange insects skittered across the floor. Liara walked close to Daniel, her steps quick but silent. As they moved, the leader whispered instructions. "The Xerox patrols grow stronger every night. They use drones in the skies, scanners in the streets, but there are still cracks in their net. We know them all." Daniel's ears stayed sharp, catching every sound behind them. He could almost feel the weight of the hunters pressing closer. Suddenly, a faint hum filled the tunnel. The rebels froze. "Drones," one hissed. Daniel grabbed Liara's hand and pulled her into the shadows. A moment later, a small metal sphere floated into view, its red eye scanning the tunnel. It pulsed with energy, preparing to alert others. Daniel acted fast. He aimed and fired, the blaster shot burning through the drone's core. Sparks exploded as it collapsed to the ground, but the noise echoed through the tunnels like a warning bell. "They'll know where we are now," Liara whispered in fear. The rebel leader snarled. "Move, to the surface, now!" They climbed a ladder that opened into a side street above. The city was alive with chaos. Neon lights flickering, merchants shouting, strange music rising from taverns. But beneath it all, Daniel felt the tension of hunters closing in. The rebels led them quickly through winding alleys, past glowing market stalls and shadowed doorways. Everywhere, strange faces turned to watch. Some looked with pity, others with cold silence. Everyone knew the Xerox ruled here. Liara clutched Daniel's arm, whispering, "They're close." "I can feel them." Her words proved true. A sudden shout rang out from behind. "There, the escaped vessel!" Daniel turned and saw armored Xerox hunters pushing through the crowd, their weapons glowing red. Panic spread through the market as aliens scattered in every direction. "Run!" Daniel barked. The chase began. The rebels darted through the crowd, weaving between stalls. Daniel held Liara's hand tight, pulling her after him. The hunters fired beams of energy that cut through the air, striking walls and tearing through carts. Smoke and screams filled the night. Daniel shoved a stall over to block their path, fruits and glowing liquids spilling onto the ground. The hunters smashed through, relentless. They turned into another alley, narrow and dark. But halfway through, More hunters appeared from the other end. They were surrounded. Liara gasped, her body trembling. "Daniel, stay behind me," he ordered firmly. The rebel leader threw a device to the ground. It exploded with a blinding flash of light and smoke. The alley filled with chaos as Daniel pulled Liara into a hidden doorway. They tumbled into another tunnel below, the rebels following quickly. The hunters roared in anger above, but the group was already gone, swallowed by darkness again. The tunnels led them to an old transport station beneath the city. Rusted tracks stretched into shadows and broken train cars sat abandoned. The rebels lit dim lanterns guiding the way. "We're almost safe," the leader said, his voice low. "From here we can take you to the safe zone." But Daniel wasn't convinced. His instincts screamed danger still lingered. He looked at Liara, who leaned against the wall, her face pale but determined. "You're stronger than you think," he told her quietly. She looked up, her eyes glimmering, "Only because you are here." Before Daniel could respond, a deafening crash shook the station. The ceiling cracked, dust raining down. From the broken wall, armored Xerox hunters poured in, their glowing weapons raised. This time there were dozens. Daniel cursed under his breath, raising his blaster. "They don't stop, do they?" Liara clutched his arm, whispering with trembling lips. "They will never stop, not until either I am dead or free." The hunters advanced, their red lights glowing like fire in the dark. The rebels prepared their weapons, ready for one last desperate fight. And Daniel knew. The real battle of survival had just begun. The ruined transport station trembled as the Xerox hunters advanced, their glowing weapons casting eerie red light across the broken tracks. Daniel stood at the front, his blaster tight in his grip. Beside him, Liara clutched his arm, her pale blue skin shimmering under the dim lantern glow. Behind them, the rebels raised their weapons, determined but heavily outnumbered. The air buzzed with tension. The hunters' boots struck the floor like drums of doom. Liara's breath quickened and Daniel felt her tremble. He leaned close, his voice calm but firm. "Stay with me. No matter what happens, I won't let them take you." Liara looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear and something deeper. "Trust." She nodded, but her lips trembled as she whispered, "If they capture me, they will chain me again. They will use me until nothing is left, Daniel. I would rather die here." Daniel's chest tightened. He couldn't bear the thought of her suffering again. His life had always been about survival, drifting from one world to another without roots. But with Liara, everything was different. She wasn't just another stranger to protect. She had become his reason to fight. The hunters shouted, their language harsh and cruel. Energy beams lit the air as the battle erupted. Daniel fired quickly, each shot precise. Rebels engaged fiercely, explosions shaking the station. Liara stayed behind him, but when a hunter leapt too close, she grabbed a metal rod and struck with desperate strength. Her courage stunned Daniel. She wasn't just surviving, she was fighting for freedom. But wave after wave pressed forward. Daniel knew they couldn't win like this. Not against so many. His blaster grew hot, the charge running low. The rebels were falling one by one, outnumbered. Liara stumbled against him, fear breaking her voice. "We cannot hold them, Daniel. We will die here." He caught her by the shoulders, forcing her to look at him. In the middle of chaos, he leaned close and whispered words that froze her heart. "Then stay with me. Not for one night. Not as a prisoner of fate. Stay. Forever." Liara's eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks. For so long she had been treated as property, a vessel, never given a choice. Now for the first time, someone asked her not as a master but as an equal. His whisper wasn't an order, it was a promise. Her lips parted, her voice breaking. "Forever?" Daniel nodded, his gaze unwavering even as blasts shook the ground around them. "Forever. I don't care who they are. I don't care how many come. I will fight them all, but only if you promise me one thing, don't give up." Liara's fear melted into something brighter. Hope. She gripped his hands, her tears shining like silver. "Then I will stay. Not as a slave. Not as their vessel, but as yours. Forever." The moment burned into them like fire, even as chaos raged around. A sudden explosion tore through the ceiling, dust raining down. More hunters swarmed into the station. The rebels shouted, retreating toward the tunnels. Daniel pulled Liara close, shielding her from falling debris. "We need to move." The rebel leader, wounded but alive, waved them forward. "There's an old escape rail. It leads to the outer sectors. Run." Daniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed Liara's hand and together they sprinted toward the broken rail tracks. Behind them the hunters roared, firing beams that lit the station in red fire. They dashed through smoke and rubble, Daniel's blaster flashing, Liara clinging to his side. Her heart raced, but his whisper still echoed in her mind. Stay forever. Those words gave her strength to run when her legs wanted to collapse. At the far end of the station, the tunnel opened into a vast underground rail line. Abandoned cars sat rusting on the tracks, their windows shattered. The rebels rushed inside one, starting the old engines. Sparks flew, gears groaned, but the car began to move slowly down the rails. Get in, the leader shouted. Daniel lifted Liara inside, then jumped in after her. The car jerked forward, gathering speed. Behind them, the hunters stormed the tunnel, firing wildly. Beams of energy struck the walls, shattering stone, but the car pushed forward into darkness. Liara collapsed against Daniel's chest, shaking from exhaustion and fear. He held her tightly, his hand stroking her silver hair. You're safe, he whispered. I promised, didn't I? Liara closed her eyes, tears soaking into his shirt. You did. And for the first time, I believe someone will keep their word. The train car rattled faster, carrying them away from the hunters and deeper into the forgotten tunnels. Around them, the rebels reloaded their weapons, weary but alive. For now, they had escaped. But Daniel knew the fight wasn't over. The Serox would hunt them across every shadow of Xalox, across every star if needed. Yet as he looked down at Liara, her face peaceful against his chest, he felt something new stir within him. Purpose. No longer a wanderer without roots, he had something worth protecting, not just for one night, but for forever. The final stand, the old railcar rattled through the tunnels, sparks flying from its rusted wheels. Daniel kept one arm around Liara, holding her steady as the car lurched forward. The rebels sat opposite them, silent and tense. Every one of them knew this escape was temporary. The Serox clan would not stop until Liara was found. Liara lifted her head slowly, her silver hair clinging to Daniel's chest. Her glowing eyes searched his face. They will follow us, she whispered. They will never rest. Daniel met her gaze, his voice steady. Then we make them stop. Once and for all. The rebel leader nodded grimly. He is right. We cannot run forever. The Serox control this planet, but their strength is also their weakness. They believe themselves untouchable. Strike them hard, strike them where it hurts, and they will bleed. Liara's voice trembled. But how? They have armies. We are only a handful. Daniel's jaw tightened. Armies fall when their leaders fall. We don't need to fight them all, we just need to cut off the head. The rebels exchanged glances. One finally spoke. The High Chamber. That is where the clan leaders gather. They are guarded by hundreds, but if we reach them, Daniel leaned forward. Then it ends tonight. Hours later, under the cover of shadows, the small group emerged in the upper city. Towers of glowing glass loomed above, streets patrolled by armored hunters. At the heart of the city rose the High Chamber, a fortress of black stone carved with symbols of power. Its gates glowed red, guarded by legions. From their hiding place, Daniel studied the fortress. His eyes burned with determination. We get in, we find the leaders, and we end this. No more running. Liara touched his arm, her voice trembling. Daniel, if we fail, they will kill you. You don't have to do this for me. Daniel turned to her, his hand brushing her cheek gently. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this with you. Because you deserve more than chains. Because you asked me for one night and I asked you for forever. I meant it. Liara's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not of fear. They were of strength. She nodded. Then together, the plan was simple and desperate. The rebels created a diversion at the main gate, drawing the hunters into a battle of fire and smoke. Explosions lit the night, alarms wailed, and chaos spread across the streets. Daniel and Liara slipped through a side passage, guided by the rebel leader. They climbed narrow stairways, slipped through hidden doors until they reached the upper halls of the High Chamber. The grand hall stretched before them, lined with glowing torches. At its center stood the Serox elders, tall, cruel figures with eyes like fire. They sat upon thrones of stone, watching as guards filled the room. One elder rose, his voice booming. The escaped vessel returns, and she brings her human toy. Liara's heart pounded, but Daniel stepped forward, his blaster raised. His voice was cold. I'm no one's toy, and she is no one's vessel. The elders laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You think you can change destiny, human? You think you can defy the bloodline? Daniel fired. The shot struck the floor near the elder's feet, silencing the laughter. I don't care about your destiny. I care about her freedom, and I'll burn this hall down to get it. The guards advanced. Daniel and the rebels fought fiercely, blasters and blades clashing in a storm of light. Liara, trembling but determined, grabbed a fallen spear and struck at the hunters, her courage blazing. The battle raged, but Daniel pushed forward, carving a path toward the thrones. The elders retreated, fury flashing in their eyes. One raised his hand, chanting words of power that made the walls shake. Liara screamed, rushing forward. No more chains. With a cry, she drove the spear into the elder's chest. His roar shook the chamber as he collapsed, his blood glowing faintly before fading. The other elders faltered, their arrogance cracking. Daniel fired again, striking another elder down. The rebels overwhelmed the guards, their fury fueled by years of pain. At last, silence fell. The high chamber burned with smoke and fire. The elders lay fallen. The Serox clan's power cracked like shattered stone. Liara dropped the spear, her chest heaving. Daniel caught her as she stumbled, holding her close. Her tears spilled freely as she whispered, "It's over." Truly over. Daniel brushed her hair back, his voice soft in the ruins of the hall. No, Liara, it's not over. It's the beginning. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing with hope. The beginning? He smiled faintly, tired but strong. The beginning of freedom. The beginning of forever. Liara leaned into him, her arms wrapping around his shoulders. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. She wasn't running. She was free. The rebels gathered around them, weary but victorious. The leader looked at Daniel with respect. You've done what none of us believed possible. The Serox are broken. The people will rise now. Daniel only tightened his hold on Liara. His eyes met hers, and in that moment nothing else mattered. She had asked him for one night. He had given her forever, and together in the ruins of tyranny they began their new life.